House Democrat John Dingell has a fractured hip. He was hospitalized Friday in Washington. It turns out he fractured his hip in a fall last week. His wife, Debbie Dingell, who was elected to the seat last month, says it was by sheer grit and determination that her husband did not miss the final days of his House session, his last House session last week. She says no surgeries needed. I'm Chris Barnes. This is news on the Blaze Radio Network. Truth lives here.
On a mission given to me by Woody Shaw, Sunship, Dizzy, and John Kahn, dedicated to pursuing a piece of our cultural heritage through interviews with my music heroes, this is The Jake Feinberg Show. Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today on this El Nino-esque weather day here in the Old Pueblo. My show revolves around the 4 L's: leadership, love, life, and lineage, and the ongoing story of real music made by real artists. It all rolls into one: the endless years of studio work and road tours and temptations and swing. Some days are good, some are bad, but it's the rhythm that keeps the motor churning. Rhythm from a section of individuals who have had a profound impact on my merging words with music. The section was made up of Leland, Sklar, Kortchmar, Waddy Wachtel, Craig Doerge, and my guest. A tapestry of players equipped to make the music feel good. Joni Mitchell and Carole King, to James Taylor and Jackson Browne, playing in sync with Bobbye Hall, passing Jim Keltner in the halls of Studio City, watching his family grow and succeed while staying active, keeping his chops up like Buddy Rich and Milt, Holland, and Larry Bunker. Tours with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, or a little Goodbye Girl with David Gates, new mornings with Bob Dylan, or doing the Meatball with Tom Scott. He has experienced the highest highs and lowest lows. He has been dealt a hand that allowed him to pursue his native gifts and make a livelihood out of it. He has also felt true loss, losing his soulmate and second wife, Nicolette Larson, who is smiling down on us right now. But like this host, sometimes you don't realize how much the human being can handle. In fact, life can lay some haymakers on you, and you dust yourself off, look towards the light, and open your heart, knowing you are blessed. Knowing you are out in the rapids somewhere with an oar, sometimes, without experiencing deja vu, because it seems like he's been there before. Russ Kunkel, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm up here in British Columbia on Vancouver Island with my wife, enjoying the holiday season.
Wow, that is I would love to be. That's beautiful up there, man. It's cool.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
Pretty special spot.
I just want to tell you, it's, I've been tracking you down for a while, and it's an honor to talk to you, Russell, because you have just, you've laid it out pretty systematically, but I've talked to Keltner. Hal Blaine gave him his break. David Kemper came to Los Angeles, didn't even know what a session drummer was. I would like to know who gave you your break.
Oh God. Well, the biggest break that I got was from Peter Asher. I'd have to give him kudos for that, for hiring me to play on the Sweet Baby James album. Particularly because he decided to put liner notes that listed the credits of the musicians on the record, and that was only being done on jazz records at the time. So that single act and participating on that record pretty much kind of set up a domino effect of other things to come. So, and Peter has been very influential in my career all along the way, working with lots of the artists that he produced and managed. So, but prior to Peter, when I first came to Los Angeles, there was I'm going to blank on his name real quick. His name is Joel Sill, and he worked for ABC Dunhill Publishing, and he hired me to do some of my first session work in Los Angeles. I was doing publishing demos for ABC Dunhill for like $15 a song. And I got to meet a lot of great musicians. I got to meet Larry Knechtel. I got to meet, Joe Osborne. I got to meet some really, really great players during that period of time. So I would have to say Joe played a real influential part early on as well. And before that, my brother's the one that, my oldest brother, Gilbert, is the one that got me into playing the drums because he was a drummer and sat me on his knee and put sticks in my hand and kind of showed me what to do. So,
what kind of, was he like a Gene Krupa, Tom Tom war cry guy?
No, he was, he had some flashy moves. He definitely twirled the sticks, and he was influenced by some of that kind of stuff. But it was in Pennsylvania where I was born, and the band that he had was, this was in the 50s. So, I mean, the instrumentation was drums, bass, saxophone, and accordion. So,
I want to ask you a question, actually. Actually, we have a phone call coming in right now, Russ. Caller that wants to ask you a question. So hold on one second, okay? It's Lee from Scarsdale. Hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir. What's your question?
This is for Russ Kunkel.
Oh, no problem.
I was just wondering if he still sleeps in the same bunk with Lee Sklar when they're on the road.
I think I've been radio bombed.
Hi, Russ.
Hello, sweetheart. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. When Jake called me to say you were going to be there, I thought I should commiserate with you.
Yeah, I just want to say,
you're in Scarsdale. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm at a clinic here for the impaired.
Right.
No, I'm at home. Actually, I played with Cooch last night.
Oh, right, with Steve Postel?
Yeah, it was great, and your ears should have been burning. We were talking about you like crazy, and I'm excited that I'm going to see you we're going to play on Thursday.
We are. I'm looking forward to that.
I just want to, while I have both of you on the line, I want to just tell you, I mean, as corny as it might sound, I mean, my wife and kids really, really have a hard time with some of the music I listen to, but when we, when we can fall back on, In the Pocket, which we did last summer, I sort of became obsessed with both of you, and I made it a point to try to go out and covet you guys. And Lee was on my program when I got back on AM radio in August, I believe, we've done about 5 interviews, and now to talk to talk to Russ. Russ, I wanted to ask you while Lee's on the phone. You guys connected obviously with James Taylor, but tell me about playing with Sklar and the kind of the feeling. It's about feel. Tell me why was it so special to cook with Lee all those years?
It's probably the single ingredient that I think that happens when Lee and I play together is that we, he kind of plays me and I play him. In other words, we never talk about anything we're going to do. It's kind of like before he plays a lick or before I do something, it's kind of transmitted in the osmos to each other, and we always land in the same spot. And after years and years and years of trusting that and doing that, it just happens naturally. You know, like a certain turn in the song will happen, and Lee will set up something with a lick on. I know exactly where he's going, and I'll hit something and pull back and wait and let him land. And it's I often liken it to putting on an old pair of loafers. You know?
but I mean, that stuff. You look at some BBC stuff. Like you guys were in a quartet with James Taylor. Like you were playing a trap set, and Lee's on electric, sitting down. I mean, was that sort of feet into loafers kind of thing? Was that happening right? Did you sync up right away, or did that take a few years to really sink in?
No,
from my standpoint, my relationship with Russ was instantaneous. I mean, we just both had the same metabolic rate or something. When we sat down to play, it just was, the music was a great conduit for both of us, because James's music really lent itself to what we were bringing to the table. But I just felt an immediate simpatico when we played together. And like Russ was saying, there's times where we've been in separate rooms on sessions, and all I'm hearing is a click track, and for some reason they screwed up and haven't got the drums in my cue, and we'll go back and listen to the playback, and we've caught everything organically without even hearing each other. We both just think down the same path, and it's a remarkable thing, because I work with lots of amazing drummers all the time, but with Russ it was something, another element to it that was really unique as far as I'm concerned to our relationship, and it really was that we both kind of share the same heartbeat or something. It's a remarkable relationship, and the thing that amazes me is we're going on 45 years of it, and it hasn't diminished one bit.
Only in the sense
it's actually gotten better in lots of ways, which is really amazing.
Well, we're more gentle with each other now. We were more aggressive in the early days, but now it's.
I'm going to try to get one more serious word in before it falls apart.
Go ahead. No, please do it.
You just said something that kind of just occurred to me. You said thinking, and I think what happens is when Lee and I play, it's the absence of thinking. We don't think about it, because sometimes when you think about something to play, you're already too late. It doesn't.
Yeah, I agree.
Happen quick enough. So it's just the absence of thinking and just pretty much just trusting. It's more of a trusting that we're going to do the same thing and not really worrying about it. So.
Russ, this is absolutely integral for human mankind. Did you came into James Taylor prior to Lee, but you say you guys, it's the absence of thinking. You're just listening. You were in a band though. What was the name of the band you were in? Lee was in Wolfgang. What was the band you were in?
It's called Things to Come.
Did you, and what was the first time you saw? Did you see Sklar play on the same bill? How did you guys? Did you get Lee the gig with James?
I don't know if I necessarily got the gig. Lee, you would probably remember better than me.
Yeah, I don't even remember. I remember seeing Things to Come. I don't think we ever were on a bill together. I just remember I was at some gig once at some place in L.A., and Things to Come was playing, and I remember seeing Russ playing, but I never met him at that point. I don't think we actually met until the first time we got together with James. But I knew your name, which so I was aware of Russ, but we had never had the opportunity to play together prior to James.
And just for the go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I want to plug this. I mean, it's you guys are gigging this Thursday. I'm going to try to get my my little prop airplane out there. Where are you guys gigging?
No, we're doing a session in Nashville, a project in Nashville. It's just it's a recording project.
Wow, smart people to get that. I think that's as we finish up here with these beautiful rhythm mates. I look at it and I say, probably the most unique section in the sense that you guys actually were so tight, and not even tight. It was just that you had so much dexterity, you had so much alacrity, you had such chops that, I mean, people were like, yeah, they're already a band. I really don't know, aside from an actual touring band, that anything else like that really ever existed. I mean, there were different amalgamations, but you guys have done it for 40 years. Russ, I'll ask you, I mean, I mean, you guys will play. You guys will play till you're dead. But I mean, is there significance there because you came in really before the advent of heavy electronics and heavy amplification? The music was still made to be dance music. Just your thoughts, please, Russ.
Well, here's something that might help put it into perspective. For the most part, Danny, Leland, myself, and Craig Doerge, and different other adding people here and there, David Lindley, so on and so forth. Look at the list of the people that we got to play with in the 70s. It's James Taylor, Jackson Browne, Crosby and Nash, Carole King. So we were playing as a band with some of the best singer-songwriters that will ever pick up a pen. And we got to be part of defining, moments in their life. So we were pretty lucky, So we got to play as a cohesive unit behind lots of incredible music. So I think that definitely has something to do with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Lee from Scarsdale, thanks for calling. We radio bombed Kunkel. I cannot thank you enough for calling in, man.
Oh no, it's a pleasure. Anytime I get a chance to talk to Russ and you, it's a treat.
Well, we'll do it.
I'm going to go back out and finish cleaning up the dog poop in the backyard, and then head off to Harry Shearer and Judith Owen's Christmas show that we're doing today and tomorrow.
Well, have a ball.
Give them my best, will you?
I will. And Russ, I'll see you on Thursday, and I'll give you all my holiday and New Year's solicitations then. So,
okay, I'll see you then.
Travel safe, my friend.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick bump break. Come right back.
All right.
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show, sponsored in part by Stereo Hospital, with over 40 years of experience repairing all types of home audio equipment, from vintage table radios to digital surround sound. At 4044 East Speedway inside Metronome Music, it's the place to take your turntable, CD player, tape deck, heck, just about anything to do with the stereo. Call 722-4610. Speak to Jeff Brucker or any of his trusty associates. Russ, did you catch that little track there?
Yeah, what's that from?
Okay, so just a little background. I was hoping that maybe once I give you this story, you'll be able to fill me in. But I was in San Diego, I don't know, a couple years ago, digging through a record shop, and I found this album, white label promo of The Section, Forward Motion. And the fourth or fifth track in is a track called One Drum. And that was you, man. That's when I called you originally. And it was just so funny because I was like, you know about, all this. You ever follow Tony Allen? And you're like, no, I don't know. I love everything. But your use of the symbols on that, there was just a war cry there. And to me, I was like, at that point, my brain opened up to because listen, you're playing with Joni Mitchell, you're playing with Carole King. It's pretty music. It's nice. It's lilting. Sometimes it's up tempo or whatever. But this was an opportunity for you to show your chops on the trap set. Do you remember at all, was that just a spontaneous kind of thing? Because we play that on this every week on this show, Russ. As we go to bump, as we go to break, we play this track.
Oh wow, that's so nice. It was spontaneous. Yeah, I can't plan those things out. I've never ever really considered myself to be a soloist, but the times that I have ventured into it, it was just stuff that came off the top of my head. So
well, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, the opportunity to play in that configuration with Lee and Danny and Craig in the section was a wonderful opportunity for all of us, and it gave us a chance to all kind of move into an area that was certainly new for me, And early on in our band's career, when we were being managed by Peter Asher, Peter got us on a tour of Canada, opening for the Mahavishnu Orchestra, which, we have been so fortunate in the groupings and the pairings that we've had over the years. I mean, if you're going to consider yourself to be a startup fusion band, and you got to go on the road and open for the Mahavishnu Orchestra, one, you would be terrified, but two, it's the best school you could ever go to. We learned so much from Billy and John and Jerry and Rick, everybody, Jan Hammer, those guys. We watched their show every night with our chins on the ground. So.
Can you talk about what one thing you might have learned from those cats?
Well, the music is incredibly spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the biggest thing that I took away from it. At the beginning of their show during that period of time, John would stand in the middle of the stage and he would ask the audience to be quiet for a minute, for everyone to be completely still. And so this is a crowded auditorium, right? And there's people coughing and all this kind of stuff. But you could look at the very first row, and when he was standing up there in his white uniform, when he said, "Could we please be quiet for 1 minute?" and he would hang his head, and you could see a wave of tranquility completely overtake the whole auditorium. And it would start at the front, and it would get silent, and then more silent, until it was absolutely dead still. The only thing that you could hear was maybe if there was an air conditioning unit.
Dude, this is why go ahead. Yeah.
And everyone, we would get goosebumps every night. And then he would start the guitar riff of Inner Mounting Flame.
Right.
And that would be the first thing you'd hear. And
wow.
The goosebumps I just got them again, just thinking about that, And then into Billy's fill that sets up the song. And then you were taken on a trip, on a musical ride, like there's never been one like it. They truly played each other. I mean, there were very little arrangements in those songs. I mean, there were landing spots, but in between, they were all playing each other's instrument. It was beautiful to watch. And so that's what I took away from that trip with them, that music, especially instrumental music, can be completely guided by the soul. And sometimes your body and your extremities will do things that you've never ever done before if you let those things in. It's not about chops. It's about, opening up the channels.
This is why we have Russ Kunkel on the program, because you're setting, to be honest with you, did you say Peter Asher hooked you guys up on that tour? Is that how you got that gig?
Yeah.
So would it be like one night you would open for them and then they'd close, and then one night they'd open and you close, or how did that work?
No. We were their opening act.
I mean, I would have been content to just see the section. I mean, you guys must have been. Where were you? Were you just like, let's just open it up and not think a lot and just jam? Did you find that, not even with Mahavishnu, but just at that point, because that Forward Motion album, the one before that with the Cherry Pie, I'm talking like pre-75. I mean, you guys had basically been doing sessions, but when you got into that live setting, are there analog tapes of that stuff? I need to hear like a 17-minute Kunkel jam going, you and Sklar.
I don't know if we, there are some tapes. There's actually some recorded multi-tracks of a show that we did at, the Pantages Theater. We were opening up James Taylor's show, and we've been and it's actually, there's video for it too. It's a project that we've been kind of talking about getting together and trying to get it put together, but it's convoluted. And you go back and try to put stuff like that together. There's so many people you got to talk to, but
right.
We had songs. I mean, the difference between us and Mahavishnu is that we were kind of a cross between, the Meters and I don't know, the Meters, a little bit of Alan Toussaint and I don't know, the Ventures. I don't know. It was interesting because our instrumental things had mostly because of Danny, had funk in them,
mm-hmm.
And which kind of set it apart. And I think that's one of the things that the guys in the Mahavishnu Orchestra liked about us, is that we weren't doing the same kind of music that they were. But in between those funky parts, there would be long extended solos where there was a lot of interplay in between, the members,
Well, I want to tell you, I mean, I would like to write the liner notes for anything that might be released related to that. To me, that is, I realize there's a lot of people involved with it, but this is essential, man. I know you're on tour with Lyle Lovett. You're traveling overseas. I mean, I've tried to get Russ on the program for 2 or 3 months, but you're so busy. Is there I'm in my little hermetically sealed bubble, but is there anything going on you've seen or played in that can compare to that kind of spiritual music that you witnessed with Mahavishnu with an audience these days? Is there an artist out there or a band that comes to mind?
Well, I couldn't, nothing that I've seen, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, because, I mean, there's so much music being made these days, and I'm a real true believer in the perpetuation of live music, that to me is the thing that's going to save, the business, is musicians that can play, going out and playing live, because audiences want that. That's why people still tour, and the acts that make a really good living on the road don't necessarily have hit albums anymore. Jimmy Buffett, James Taylor, Jackson Browne, they all tour extensively every year, and they don't necessarily have any new product out. But it doesn't matter, because the people want to see them play live. And so there might be some bands out there now that are doing exactly what we're talking about now, but I just haven't seen them.
But also, let me counter that by saying, part of the intimacy and the visceral quality was just the propensity of venues, but also the small venues that you guys were really right there in front of people. Whereas now, a lot of big acts, where's the money? Casinos and I'm blanking on the other thing now. They're playing these much more sort of sterile venues, and I say to myself, all I want to see is things to come. The section in down in a swampy bar somewhere. That to me is where the real magic occurs, not in some rock palace where you have people just sheer output. And that's the problem, is that I don't see a lot of venues anymore in major urban centers, or even it's really hard. You got to pay to play now. It's an uphill battle for younger musicians, and I just wonder what the kind of, not advice, but the fortitude. Do you find yourself giving a lot of inspirational talks to people that want your advice?
No, this is the first one.
Okay, well, this is a good segue, because we have a game on this show. It's a little bit different. Normally it's called Name That Tune, but in this case, not only do you have to name the tune, but you have to name the cat that's talking about you, okay? So let's take a listen to this, and we'll come back and talk about it.
Okay.
It's a somewhat polished pop rendition of Midnight.
But the drummer, I think it was Russ Kunkel, he got it right. That rhythm that I play on the guitar, that really is more of a New Orleans based beat than a country beat or Mexican or anything. And I've actually gone back to playing it that way. So Russ got it right. We had that little shuffle going on there.
All right, Mr. Kunkel, name that tune and name that person.
Can I hear the talking again?
Can we get that queued up again? Yeah, no, and just, but while Oscar, you ready, buddy? Okay, here we go. a somewhat polished pop rendition of Midnight.
You know, but the drummer, I think it was Russ Kunkel. He got it right.
Russ is
that rhythm that I play on the guitar. You know, ba-da-ba-da-da-dum-doo. That really is more of a New Orleans-based beat than a country beat or Mexican or anything. And I've actually gone back to playing it that way. So Russ got it right. We had that little shuffle going on there.
All right, buddy. You need it again?
No. You know what? For some reason, it's the first thing I thought was that was Jim Keltner, because his voice sounds a little bit like Jim. Is it J.J. Cale?
You know,
or Rodney Crowell?
I promoted no, and if I can get it to you now if you want. I promoted a concert 2 months ago for a guy, formerly of in Bill Monroe's Bluegrass Boys and C-Train, Peter Rowan. And Rowan came down here, was in the studio live with me, and we played that tune called Midnight Moonlight, which is a bluegrass tune. And you played drums on that whole album, and there he nailed it. And of course, as you talked about with the section being sort of a crossover between the Meters and the Ventures, there's Jigaboo Modaliste. That's what he's talking about. That New Orleans flavor, man. So I mean that, but you don't remember that? That was the Rowan brothers. Yeah,
I do remember that. Yep.
You know, when you look back on it now, can you talk about when you decided, I mean, when you knew that you were financially secure, and then it was kind of like, I want to keep playing music and I want to build a legacy. Can you talk a little bit about how you've gone about that, controlling your ego? And like Lee tells me, you get off tour with whoever it could be, and yet you're just doing the most perfunctory things again and just being a human being.
Well, it's what we've always done. The only job I've ever had is being a musician, except for 1 month in one summer in 1965. I worked in a gas station for a month, and that was enough to make me realize that I never wanted to have that kind of job again. But that's all I've known. I mean, it's what I do. In playing music, writing music, producing music brings me a lot of joy. It's the completing of cycles of action that, especially in the making of music and the writing of music, that they're really wonderful. You have for writing, if you you get up, or you have a dream and you get up in the morning and you write down a couple lines on a piece of paper, and you pick up an instrument and you start playing, or you just write. Well, moments ago there was nothing. There was not even anything in the physical universe, and now there's words on a piece of paper. And if you pick up a guitar and you start to play something, now there's actual sound, traveling through the airwaves. And then you follow that through to make a recording of it. And what once was nothing now is an idea, is a feeling, is an emotion that can physically affect other people. And that's the beauty of songwriting. I mean, to me, it's the beauty of making film. It's the beauty of writing a book. It's the beauty of poetry. It's taking a thought, taking a feeling, and making it real in the real world and putting it out there. And playing music is the same thing. When you sit down to start a set or to play a song, it's silent, and then all of a sudden there's music. So there's creation. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And although many musicians maybe don't know that this is happening, but that's what's fulfilling about it. When you finish playing a song, it's rewarding. It feeds your soul. So.
Well, that's you've been nailing it today, Kunkel. I want to ask you, can you talk about one of the L's on my program is leadership, and I was hoping that you could talk about, especially with some of the titans you've worked with, even now or before. Could you give an example of, the leadership displayed by cats like, it could be James Taylor or anybody, as far as including the accompanists, not only taking their input but crediting them? Or you just go ahead. Give me one of your bases of leadership.
Well, I think the best leaders are the ones that delegate authority. I think if you probably historically looked at that, you'd find out that the best leaders always did that. They surrounded themselves with competent people and then let those competent people do their job. Micromanaging music never works.
Right.
It becomes tedious and incredibly stale. Music is an art form that's meant to be. It's meant to flow. It can't be stagnant. And when it is, then you can hear it immediately. I mean, if it wasn't for the beauty in rap lyrics, not all of them, but most of them, and the rhythm in the lyrics of rap music, and you just listen to some of those tracks, you would only listen to it for about a second.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's tedious. It doesn't flow, and it's electronically produced. Digitally produced. So there has to be a flow to it. And when you try to micromanage it and not delegate, the authority, for in the case of musicians, you have to hire people that are going to have some simpatico with you, that aren't just going to play all the way through your ballad. But once you pick the right people to play with, let them help you. Let them do what they do best. And if you've picked the right people to surround yourself with, then it's going to be a really wonderful dance. I've worked with people who, and which I won't mention any names, but who do try to micromanage everything, and it becomes tedious for them, and it's tedious for the people that work for them.
Yeah, I can only imagine, because you've been on both sides of was like Crosby and Nash, they were very much like just free and open. They'd come in and kind of with a sketch. Were they not micromanagers?
No, they were not at all. And I would have to say, I would have to give incredible props to Graham and David and Stephen and Neil as being one of the forerunners to the same thing that happens in the Mahavishnu Orchestra, because their music, the music of the Grateful Dead, the music of Big Brother and the Holding Company, the Allman Brothers, that kind of music is meant to be wide open. And there's definitely songs there, and there's definitely songs that get performed, but, there's a magic that happens on stage. And, if you played a solo or you played something different from one night to the next, you were applauded, not chastised.
Exactly. You nailed it. I mean, would you have considered, was Things to Come that kind of band? I mean, because you mentioned the Allmans and the Dead, both of them had two drummers, so you had one guy keeping time and then another one sort of just extrapolating. But did you ever go, obviously your livelihood was in the studio, but was there potential? I always wanted to believe that Kunkel had the opportunity to go out and do some sort of, rock and thing, like you said, where every tune was not the same every night.
Well, I got to have that when playing with Crosby and Nash. I mean, sometimes, David would just start playing something,
mm-hmm.
And everyone would jump in. And we'd be on stage in front of, thousands of people. And I didn't know where he was going, but all of a sudden then he would start playing, Lee Shore. The lick for Lee Shore would come up. We were kind of just vamping around whatever thing that he played. And then all of a sudden it would go into a song. So that kind of stuff happened all the time with them. And they were the complete opposite of micromanaging. I mean, they wanted you to explore, and they fed on it and encouraged you to do that, and they still do. I'm actually looking forward to this fall. David and Stephen and Graham have asked me to do a European tour with them, which I'm really excited about because I haven't played with them live in quite some time.
Oh, when was it? So maybe 10 years or more, you think?
Well, I've done recording. My son Nathaniel produced an album, a solo album of Graham's, and a Crosby Nash album a few years ago. So I work with them a lot in the studio, but I haven't played live. The last time I played live was I put a band together for a Graham Nash solo tour to promote his album. But I haven't played with them recently. So.
Yeah, no, there's a bevy of live shows from like the mid 70s, 73, 74, but obviously, there's just a lot of Russ Kunkel everywhere. You can probably look on almost any album and find this cat, Russ Kunkel. I mean, and it really, truly, Russ, I mean, you're right in the same category. I mean, Blaine is your elder. Is Keltner your elder? Would that be fair to say?
I don't think there's much age difference between Jimmy and I. He might be a couple years older.
You talk about how when you talk about Keltner a little bit? I mean, between you and him and Gad, and I don't want to leave anybody out, Billy Cobb. I mean, I've interviewed almost every session drummer. You've been, there's just a few more, but talk about Keltner, man, because that cat, to be able to connect with him has been great because he elucidates things similar to you in a very clear way for people that weren't on the earth when you were doing your thing. You talk about how you met him and what you think about Keltner.
Well, I can't remember the exact first time that I met him, but we worked a lot on similar projects, and sometimes on the same project. I think on In the Pocket or Gorilla, we played on How Sweet It Is together, which is a wonderful groove on that song. But I love Jim Keltner. I love his heart, and I love the person that he is. He is a big footprint and a soft footprint, and there's just I could go on and on and on. I could just put adjective after adjective about what a wonderful human being he is.
Go with
his playing. His playing just is just an extension of who he is. And sometimes, there was a story that I heard. I don't know whether it was a Lenny Waronker story or a Russ Tiedemann story, but during that period of time, we worked a lot with those guys because they were doing all the records for Warner Brothers, and as I remember the story, it was like they did a take, and went all the way through the song, and Jim's like an icon. It's like he demands a lot of respect, not from himself, but he just gets it from the people that he works with.
Sure.
And I think Lenny or Russ got on the talk back and said, Jim, are you okay? And he goes, oh, yeah. He said, well, we only actually heard you play one kick drum beat in that whole take. So is everything okay? And he goes, oh, yeah. Well, that's all I heard.
That is awesome.
And what are you going to say? He's wonderful. I'm trying. Let me see if I can remember. I'm putting a thought together that I want to say to you. And
well, no, is there truth in the other thing is, I think for younger musicians, again, I'm not a musician, but I like to do this because, I can you give a day in the life of Russ Kunkel in like 1973? As far as you waking up in the morning and what was would you pass Keltner in the studios and were you doing jingles and playing? I mean, I just want to know the propensity of work during that time, how much activity you would have in a day and how you made your living.
Well, when I was in town and not working on the road, I would have always at least 2 sessions a day. There'd be a morning session at 10 and another one at 2. And then maybe if I was lucky, I would be working on somebody's, a longer project at night, like whether it was a James Taylor album or a Jackson Browne album or a Linda Ronstadt album or something. And it would be between different studios, between A&M, between the Sound Factory, Sunset Sound. And at one point I had to have 3 drum kits, because they couldn't move one kit to quick enough to the next studio. So this, it was just going from one to the other, and then when I was in town, I was doing that. But see, I worked for a lot of people and toured with the same people. But when we weren't touring, then they were making a record. So and sometimes they were managed by the same person. It would be Peter Asher. So I would be able to tour with one, then record, then tour with the next one, then record. So it was pretty busy. And then at the end of 1973, I was asked to be a part of the CSNY reunion tour that we did in 1974, which was a really big thing for me at that time because, first of all, I was playing with Stephen Stills at the time in his configuration of a band after Manassas.
Mm-hmm.
And when the 4 of them decided to get together and do this tour, Stephen really wanted me to be the drummer, and Neil said, okay, but I get to pick the bass player, and he was playing with Tim Drummond at the time, who's a phenomenal bass player and a sweet man that I love dearly. And so, Tim and I got to be the rhythm section along with Joe Lala and the 4 of them. And, they just released this box set of the recordings of a lot of stuff of that tour. And, for me, it was like, to be asked to play in that band, it was like joining the Beatles at that time.
Absolutely.
They were so huge. And I was interviewed by somebody from Rolling Stone for an article that Rolling Stone put out about this, which I thought totally sucked. But all the guy wanted from me was dirt. All he really wanted to know was who was fucking who, who was, what drugs this one was doing. And I just went, you don't seem to understand. I said, none of that mattered. I said, what mattered is that I got to play with these guys. I said, I was pinching myself every day. I was the one that was seen and not heard. And they used to say, if you go sit down and start Love the One You're With, start a drum beat to start this show. The first time I had to go out there and do that, do a fill into the groove of Love the One You're With at Wembley Stadium in front of 100,000 people, I was terrified.
That is unbelievable. But you did it. You pushed yourself to do it, man. I mean, that to me is, and it was brilliant. And unfortunately, in our society now, it's only gotten more about, it's all about the dirt. That's all they want. People only want that. That's only what sells, as opposed to what really is about making love, making music. I mean, that's what it's about. And I think that it's just ultimately why I reach out to you guys. I got another clip for you, Russ. So settle in, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay?
All right.
Every radio is blaring a hole in the wall. On the streets, the men are sweating in dirty overalls. But under the Jamaican moon, all the world is dimmed from view. Hey, now you can play the fool. Now you can play the fool. Whoa, now you, baby. Now you can play the fool.
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show, brought to you by the Amity Foundation, Circle Tree Ranch, since 1981, an internationally acclaimed, dynamic, and innovative teaching community engaged in human services, social, and environmental justice. It's offering the Awakening Program. 10500 East Tankerverde Road, www.patchman.org. All right, Mr. Kunkel, what do you got?
Well, that's a cut from Leah's album that Val Gray and I produced.
That's right. I in my communications with you, I think we had just confirmed a date, and I was in a record shop here in Tucson, and I pull out Leah's album, Leah Kunkel. I'm like, wait, I've never seen this album before. And then, of course, who's playing on Jamaican Moon or Havana Moon? Is it Jamaican? It's Jamaican Moon, and it's Joe Farrell. Joe Farrell's playing horn on that. I mean, that's great, man. What do you remember about that session?
Oh God.
And that was Lee Sklar on bass too.
Yeah, and probably Craig Doerge on keyboards or Clarence McDonald. I'm not sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you have the liner notes there?
I don't have. You actually sparked my interest with the. That's not even
might be Luis Conte on percussion, or Joe, or I'm not sure, or Joe Lala. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, we're gonna look.
Joe Farrell. I met Joe Farrell in New York when I was the first time I did Carnegie Hall with James Taylor, and Peter hired a horn section to come out and play on a couple songs, Steamroller and this song called Suite for 20G, which was three pieces of three songs that James hadn't finished that had to be strung together in a way to complete the record, because they had a they had a deadline to meet, and there was a $20,000 finishing bonus. $20,000, big money that time.
Wow.
At the end of the record. So so the horn section at Carnegie Hall was Barry Rogers,
Trombone.
Michael Brecker, Randy Brecker, and Joe Farrell.
Oh, my, are you kidding? And this was around, would you say early 73, in that range, probably?
Yeah, exactly. I would forget the exact date.
Because that was that was sort of piggybacking similarly on the Academy of Music when the band played there. You had Howard Johnson, Joe Farrell, Snooky Young. I just loved that's such a great story. The idea that they're bringing in that kind of power horn section, that must have been incredible.
Now here's another part to that story, and you know, and I'm not kidding. This is probably one of the pinnacle moments of my life. I come off stage from that show, and James, I think during that configuration, he did a solo song to end the set. So I'm the first one back up in the dressing room at Carnegie Hall, and at that time, James Taylor's attorney was a wonderful man named Nat Weiss, who represented the Beatles, and when they came to the U.S., he was their attorney. A lot of history with this guy. He represented lots of really important people, and standing next to him was one of his clients, whose name is Miles Davis. And I walk in the door, and Nat's there, and I say, "Hi, Nat," and there's Miles in all of his glory. And he looks at me, and he sticks out his hands, and he shakes my hand, and he goes, "I dug what you did with the brushes, man."
That cat was too hip, man. He was such a hip cat.
At that, I could have died and gone to heaven right then.
I dug what you did with the brush.
That actually happened to me, and I got a tip of the hat from something that I did, but from Miles Davis. Was like, you know, that's okay. I'm done. I don't need an award. I don't need anything. That's all I got. If that's all I got, I'm good.
Life, as we wrap up part one here with Russ Kunkel, who's up in British Columbia, while we're facing a El Nino-like weather down here in Tucson. Russ, I can't even tell you right now. I'm surprised the phone connection is still working out. But I just wanted you to talk a little bit about overcoming adversity in your life. If you could talk a little bit about an example of a time when, something happened to you, you took a shot, and then the idea of saying either you can quit. Steve Gadd said you either look towards the dark or you look towards the light. And I would like you to talk about a time when you look towards the light.
Well, I guess in a way I've been fortunate enough to have lots of adverse things happen to me in my life, because I think that, the more adversity you face and ultimately come through, the stronger you are, and probably the smarter you are, the more experience you have. So, I don't think I ever reached a point, even at the point, I've lost everyone in my family except one of my sisters. I've lost 2 wives and lots of good friends. But I don't think during any of that I've ever felt like I was going to turn the light out, or I was going to, just stop. I think what kept me going, through all those times was just that I only had one choice, and that was to keep moving forward, and to make sure that when it was my turn to step off the train and leave an empty space, just like everyone else had, all the other experiences that I was having about people leaving the train, that I wanted to leave a footprint that was filled with inspiration and love. And you can't do that if you're dark,
Well, Russ Kunkel, man, I hope to reconnect with you for part 2. There's a lot of stuff I didn't even get to. This Sklar took up too much time, but much love and respect, man. And I look forward to shaking your hand one day in person, man. I can't tell you thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, Jake, I really appreciate it. This has been rewarding for me as well. And just stay in touch and let me know when you want to do it again.
As we go to commercial, this is Russ Kunkel, One Drum. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see you all next week.
Southern Arizona's official station of the Arizona Cardinals. Power Talk 1210. KEVP